That was something new titles for the show put together by myself. Not sure how, but welcome to Inside Northeast Non-League Football. I'm here for another chat with a key member of a club from around the Northeast. It is Hebburn Town's. What's your title these days, Stephen? I should ask you that. I was Director of Football. Where are we at now?
Chief Executive. Chief Executive.
Chief Executive. That's quite the upgrade. Yeah, Hebburn Town Chief Executive Stephen Rutherford, a man that's been on a remarkable journey with the Hornets from a struggling club in the second division of the Northern League up to where they are now, currently challenging for promotion into the Northern Premier League's top tier, into step 3 of the non-league game. Stephen, I always say, I think to know where you're going, you've got to know where you've been. So we'll go back to the start of that journey. I think we're going back, 6-7 years now. An appeal put out for the club or by the club. Crowds were dwindling. I think it's safe to say times were well under 50. Was on the brink, although the team was doing all right on the pitch at the time. So you look back then, and it really was quite a dour time for the club.
Yeah, Mark. So first of all, thanks for having me on today. It's great to share our story with a non-league audience. So yeah, going back to 2016, 2017 season, that's when the senior arm of the club, was in dire straits, to be quite frank. You mentioned crowds. I think we hit a real low when the crowd to a Northern League Division 2 game was 30. So it was actually costing us more money to put the game on in terms of officials, etc. And out of that 30, I think over half were nearly committee men from either our club or the visiting club. So it was a real struggle. We as a club, we just couldn't get that balance and an interaction with the local community. And something had to change. And, we had an appeal around Save Hebburn Town, and from fantastic support from the local non-league community, as well as the community of Hebburn itself and surrounding towns. There was a beginning of a remarkable recovery and to where we are today. Starting with, I guess, the owners of the club, who are all local businessmen who, there's no airs or graces about them, to be frank. They're just really passionate owners that want to do well for the town, well for the club and the local community.
I mean, I remember the game after the appeal. I want to say it was either Towler or Esh winning at home, and I think there was a crowd of about 450, 500 there, and it just felt as if, although people acknowledged that there was a lot of work to do, it felt as if there was a big sigh of relief of, right, okay, we could be okay here if we can build on this.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I'm not sure myself who it was, not back then, it's that long ago. But yeah, I think it's, we needed the right people in the right roles to help drive it forward. And, the previous incumbents, they'd done a fantastic job taking the club to where it got to. But like most non-league clubs, you've got retired males normally, in their latter years who, I guess, in the current climate weren't so familiar with sort of social media, even the internet, how to use that, how to really drive, I guess, marketing the club to an extent where you could get the new generation of support. So we implemented some small tweaks, I guess, to that, which and when we got a crowd of circa 450, I think it was an example of what can happen if we just put those little tweaks right and how we move it forward.
I think it was that summer, myself and Ross Gregory sat down with you and Colin Smith, one of the owners, at Hebburn Sports Ground, and we had a chat about the future, and there was talks of 5-10 year plans and ambitious plans on and off the pitch as well. I mean, it's kind of one of them things to say, you talk about it, it's another putting it into action, but that seemed to happen really, really quickly.
Yeah, I think, the owners, along with myself, are very ambitious, in terms of the plan. So I think we first had to start with the integration of the junior arm of the club, should I say. We had a junior club that started in 2003, along with a senior side that had a rich heritage being over, almost 100 years old, over 100 years old, and we knew from a pathway perspective that we needed to start bringing local talent through our junior section, but also have that affiliation to the senior section. And what's better than running out to your hometown club in front of a large crowd at Hebburn Sports Ground? That was the ambition. And to help us get there, then we had to have a plan, and that plan focused primarily on the infrastructure of the site, because without the right infrastructure and then the right people to help drive that, then it wouldn't work. So as you've mentioned, there's a lot of things went on at the site which have helped us get to where we are today. A lot of investment, but that then enables the pieces on the pitch, which is the players' responsibility and the manager's responsibility, to make their jobs easier and to help make that happen.
You mentioned the juniors, and I think it's worth bringing up. There's been some success stories, players that are now playing Premier League, Football League, your Sam Greenwoods, Bolly Mumbas, players like that. I mean, is that kind of the long-term goal of the club to have that pathway from juniors to first team, rather than going out and paying X amount of money for a Northern League player, a Northern Premier League, National League player, to bring them through the system?
Yeah, I think that's the ambition. That we raise our own talent, and our own talent represents our club. At whatever level that we find ourselves at. There's obviously a bit of reality there, in terms of the jump between junior football at 18 years of old to even now Northern Premier League East. There's a huge jump, and unless you are that extreme talent at that age, then it will be difficult to break into first team football. But I guess that's where we've introduced our reserve side, that plugs that, I guess, that gap, and we want our reserve side to push on into hopefully Northern League football, so that again it provides another good opportunity. And we're introducing our academy this September. So again, there's another 16 to 19-year-old proposition where we can again just help that pathway for junior players into first team. And and if we'd love all of our talented players to move on to pro clubs and do well. But if that doesn't work, then the biggest reality is majority of them will end up in semi-professional football, and we hope it's with Hebburn Town Football Club.
We've already sort of hinted about the community aspect of the club, and the local community getting behind the club during those difficult times. But I suppose, and I always say this, but I'm wary of talking about COVID too much because it kind of feels like it's done now. But when I look at the club during COVID, and you were doing things on for the local community and trying to be there, trying to be that hub, how important do you felt that the club sort of led that battle during those tough times and was there for the community?
The club was vitally important, and when I look at our numbers of our junior section, we've got 72 junior teams, which equates to nearly 1,000 children between the ages of 3 and 18. And then once you attach the parents to that, you're not far talking about 3,000 people that we interact with on a weekly basis. And Heburn's a small town. Heburn's got I think there's 20,000 people live in Hebburn or thereabouts, and if not all of our membership base come within the town, but the majority of it does. And, if we're servicing, I guess, 3,000 of those, then we felt we had a vital part to play in leading from the front around what we can do. And, again, some of our members were really struggling during that period, whether it be, with I guess, general day-to-day living, from an economy perspective, but also just in terms of that social aspect. So, we supported things like food banks, providing food parcels, but more importantly, outside of that, then, offering social, I guess, gatherings, although remotely, but social gatherings just to keep people from a mental health perspective and well-being in touch with each other. Because again, without that, then, we'd probably be in a different place now, overall as a club and local community.
I suppose in some ways as well, you were unfortunate that two really historic moments in the club's history took place during COVID. I mean, we were both fortunate enough, very fortunate, to be at Wembley for that Vars final against Concert. Your promotion into the Northern Premier League was kind of as a result of COVID, but also as a result of what we should say was 2 very good seasons under Kevin Bolam, building on the work of Scott Oliver as well, who was obviously a key part of keeping the club going on the pitch. Do you feel in some ways, and this isn't meant to be a criticism, do you think in some ways you were unfortunate in the sense that it took place during COVID because maybe you lost a little bit of a chance to get supporters in?
Yeah, very much. You've mentioned two key, I guess, positives of our period, I guess, at the helm of Hebburn Town, the promotion to the Northern Premier League. That was after, obviously, the year before, the curtailment of the league, where we were sitting pretty at the top of the league, and but we eventually got promoted, and we were really happy that we got promoted. But it was as a result of COVID, I guess, and everything the FA had to deal with that. But yeah, the Vars final, historic for the club. It wasn't part of our sort of 5-year plan initially to get to a Vars final. To win it was just that extra step. But for all the highs that we had that day, that week, I guess that we had, because we were actually in the semi-final of the next year's event, not to have any of our supporters with us along that journey, it was a massive hole in our stomachs, and and disappointing overall amongst the highs. What we would have had to have 5,000-10,000 supporters behind us, that, and everything was telling us we would have had around about that amount of people from around the northeast, spectators coming to support us. And the FA makes decisions. I think the disappointing thing for us at the time was the test event. Ironically, the week before, where I think there was 10,000 supporters attended, and then a test event a week after, where there was 15,000 supporters, and we were sandwiched in between. And we did what we had to do, and there was 100 people at that event from our club. Fortunate and ecstatic times. Real privilege that myself and the committee, Vin, the chairman, and the owners were, I guess, a lucky few that could be part of it. But we did also, have the largest, or one of the largest viewing figures on BT Sports. So, all the highs and obviously some of the big lows around spectators, there's things that we can walk away with as smiles on our faces.
And I suppose to flip it on its head and be more positive than have been, I'm aware that was quite a negative question, but you did also give the town something really, really something to be proud of during a really difficult time.
Yeah, I think, in terms of community and bringing the town together, walking through the town, there was volunteers putting black and yellow banners up, there was flags up, there was, was things spray painted on even on the pathways around, offering good luck messages to the club, lots of video messages. And the turnout when we left to travel down to Wembley, I think there was around about 1,000 people just on the streets of the town, just waving us goodbye. And it was quite emotional, to be honest with you, Mark. I'm a Hebburn lad, born and bred. I'd probably bleed black and yellow if you sort of cut us in half. But to see the town come together and wish us well on the way, but then on the way back there was twice as many. I think we're still in a COVID period, but I think everyone just threw the rule book out the window and gathered at the sports club. And yeah, them are amazing times that myself, everyone involved at the club, we'll never forget, really.
We've had chats on here with Frank Bell, for example, at a concert about the step into the Northern Premier League, and you look at it, and maybe some clubs have, that's probably a bit harsh, I was going to say, underestimated just how big a jump it is. Not just in terms of the on-field standard, but the off-field demands. Obviously, we're seeing some clubs have been impacted by that quite heavily. We spoke to Dunstan about their situation with the pitch and such like. But the 3 clubs that went up, obviously with Shildon as well, you all put a lot of work into your grounds. You put a lot of work into infrastructure. If you were going to reflect on that time, on that period of putting that work in, what sort of message would you deliver to other clubs trying to make the same jump?
Yeah, great question, Mark. And I think, there is a sense of reality. We made that jump, and I think the first message we got was welcome to the big boys league. And I think that's a reality. It's a different concept. It's to I guess where we've been the Northern League, and that's no disrespect. The Northern League is a fantastic league, and I've listened to obviously some of the conversations with Glenn Newman, etc., the chairman, and I think it's advice would be, if you're planning on promotion, or you've got a 5-year plan, then the on-field stuff is important, but the biggest part is the off-field infrastructure. Start considering ground grading requirements for that level above and 2 levels above, because without that, we've seen unfortunately with other clubs in our area where they've unfortunately fell foul of that, which is a great shame, because we, like other clubs in the Northeast, want to see the Northern Premier League East a bit of a northern hotbed. It helps everybody, travel expenses. But the ground grading is the biggest thing that I would say I'd give advice, and think 2-3 years ahead and start making small changes now, and that requires investment. There's an elephant in the room there. We've been fortunate with our ownership that they've invested in the infrastructure, as well as on the field, but more the infrastructure. The on-field stuff comes second, but we've been, again, I say, fortunate with the management teams that we've had in place over the years, where we've managed to gain some success on the pitch as well as off it, which is pleasing for everyone.
You mentioned the East Division becoming a hotbed in Northeast football, and I mean, at the moment, if we bring things right up to date, obviously Stockton sat at the top. You've got yourselves in second. We should say we're recording this on Tuesday morning, so ahead of what is a monumental game tonight against Dunstan, who are third. You've got Aycliffe, who are having an unbelievable first season at this level. Concert are sort of just on the fringes of the playoffs. I think they can go within 3 or 4 points if they win tonight at Sheffield. Ashington having a very good first season at this level as well, solid, sat in mid-table. It's great to see the region being so competitive at a higher level.
Yeah, I think we've known for a number of years in the non-league scene that Northeast contingent are very strong, and it's interesting when you listen to teams and clubs outside of the Northeast how they see us and as an overall region. But I think one thing that we've learned in this league is anyone can beat anybody. It's a real competitive league. Over the past few years that we've been with in the league, you've got top getting beat off bottom, playoff places getting beat off local relegation places. So anything can happen, and it is really good to see a lot of the non-league clubs around us, in that top, in the playoff places. It just shows how much talent we've got here in the Northeast, and it's a good advert. We love flying the flag for the Northeast, along with Stockton, Dunstan's, Newton Aycliffe's, concerts, and we're all friendly clubs. I think it's really good that we reach out to each other, we help each other where we can. Obviously Dunstan's situation at the moment, it's not great for them, and we spoke to them a couple of times. If we can help out, we'd love to help out. But we're facing our own challenges, I guess, with pitch readiness and pitch availability, which is just a struggle for everyone at the minute.
When you look at, I think there's one big thing we've missed out on, which is last year's the end of the season. I always found it quite weird for yourselves, because you had the real low of missing out in the playoff semi-finals in such an agonising way on penalties against, it was Long Eaton, wasn't it? Long Eaton United. But then also having the success of what was a rare Durham Challenge Cup final win against Spennymoor. So, I mean, how did you cope with that? Obviously, the disappointment on one hand, but then this elation on the other.
Yeah, the highs and lows of football. It can be really tough. I think that from the playoffs, we've got a home advantage against Long Eaton, and I guess they went on to win it, right, against Stockton, which again was a bit of a surprise. But it shows you the caliber and the ups and downs of the league. But yeah, we performed okay on that. I'm sure if you speak to Dan or Bobby's, then he'd probably argue that. But it was great for us to get there. I think, as part of our development, then it was, we had playoffs in mind and we'll see what happens. We didn't unfortunately get over the line there. But then we had to put that behind us very quickly. And I guess, the Durham Challenge Cup final at the Stadium of Light, it's a bit of a showcase. I think, again, we mentioned community, but we had over 1,000 spectators ourselves there as a club, which again just shows what we can do. We put some low cost travel on just to get the local people of the community and the junior club there, and they came out in the numbers. I think the game itself was a very end-to-end game, and to win a higher division team, on penalties, albeit. Doesn't matter, a win's a win and your name goes on the trophy. And another momentous historic sort of evening, but also an end to a very good season for us. So it was fantastic all around.
You mentioned there about it was great to get into the playoffs last year. You feel there's maybe a little bit of a change of emphasis this year, where it's not just about being in the playoffs. It's, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you didn't want to go up last year, but this year, because of that experience, does it mean, right, this year, let's just not focus on the experience. Let's not focus on just getting there. Let's focus on getting up simply.
Yeah, I think, if we'd have went up last year, then, we're quite open-minded. If we went up, we would have said, look, we'll go up, we'll deal with it, etc. I think not going up has allowed us, I guess, that additional time just to get, additional parts of the infrastructure right. We've got a new 210-seater stand going up at the moment. We've had outside toilet blocks, which again, all require investment, but more importantly, time. It doesn't just happen overnight. You need support, grant funding support where you can. And from an FA perspective, that's split on 70% funding, 30% you need to invest yourself. So it has helped us off the pitch, I guess, not going up for all the disappointment of what the playoff given us. But then it helps us refocus for this year. Again, this is our third season in the league, and last season, we finished up in the playoffs. This season, we're there or thereabouts, and it's very close. I think this is the closest the division's ever been. Stockton up, out in front at the moment, 10 points ahead, and there's 8 games remaining. Anything can happen. I think if we're happy with the playoffs and see where we get to, but who knows, anything over the next 6 weeks can happen, and then we'll see where we get to come the end of that.
A word on your management team. I mean, you look at what's now just over 18 months since they came in. I think there was maybe an element of surprise that Daniel and Mark and Carl were persuaded to come to the club after being at Shildon and having such a good season at Shildon as well, getting the playoffs. We shouldn't forget. What was it about the three of them that put them to the top of your list, and how would you assess the job they've done in the time that's passed?
Yeah, so we, Kev and Mick and Jason, they've done a fantastic job, and unfortunately we parted company with those, and that was a bit of a surprise, I guess, for a lot of the non-league scene. But as part of our plans, we had to, move to, I guess, a new vision, and to do that, we went through a rigorous process. Some interesting candidates came forward, I guess, as part of that. But Daniel, Mark, and Carl, I guess, in terms of ticking the boxes that we've seen as a management team that can drive us forward for the next 3 to 5 years, then they come with that. They were very well prepared. I'll give you that, in terms of understanding not just the first team, right, but also our full club and bits around the pathway and what we were interested in doing at the time, but also we couldn't bring to fruition. So they were very good, and ambitious along with ourselves, and that's I guess how they succeeded in the role. And I think and since then the statements that Daniel made, and I don't mind sharing this. He actually said, he went in his first season, I'll get you to the playoffs, and I'll get you, we'll win the Durham Challenge Cup. Obviously, that's very ambitious, right? But at the end of last season, he ticked those boxes. So and he doesn't forget to tell us that, right? But yeah, I think they're a great coaching team. They understand us as a club from top to bottom. They get involved with the junior section. They're getting involved with the academy setup. The links with our reserves are growing and getting better, and it's only a positive way forward.
As I said, we are recording this just hours before the game against Dunstan at home. I mean, you look at the remainder of the season. It is 6 weeks left in the season. It feels like it should be about 15, but when you look at the remainder of the season, how do you assess it as a club? Is it purely about just getting ready for those playoffs now? Is it a case of having one eye on possible promotion and what's required to be in step 3 on and off the pitch?
So, the age-old saying, one game at a time, I think we have to look at that. We leave sort of Daniel and the team, the coaching staff, to get on with that part of their role. I think off the field, it would be remiss of us not to think of the potential move up the league to step 3 and what's required within that from a ground grading perspective, travel, so have some of that in our heads around what we need to do if we do succeed. If we don't, then how do we reevaluate where we are and what's the next steps for next season in terms of pushing on, to potentially come in that number 1 space if it's not achieved this year. So there's lots of permutations, but the team are on a great run, and tonight, obviously, first of all, we want to get the game on. Typical, we've had an abundance of rainfall in the past 24, 36 hours, which impacts the pitch, and we'll look at that later this afternoon. But we're hopeful we can get that game on, which will be a monumental tie against our friends at Dunstan, and then then we'll go on to Liver's Edge on Saturday, Ashton on Monday, but one game at a time. And the lads are on a great run. I think we've had 1 defeat in 11, which in this league, is an amazing run. It can take you from mid-table to in the playoff positions. And I think at the time of speaking now, I think what's really pleasing for us from a successful point of view is we've not been outside of that top 5 all season. And I think that is a great effort from Bobby and all the team and the club as a whole, because it's on the field stuff that helps make that happen, but the off the field stuff with all the volunteers involved, whether it be the committees supporting the pitch, the strip washing lady, etc., to the people that help from a commercial point of view, it's just a whole club effort to help us get where we are.
So I suppose just to round up for a last question, I mean, how does the future next 5 years look off the pitch? I mean, on the pitch, obviously you want to get to step 3 and maybe beyond. Obviously we know how competitive that next level is, but in terms of off the pitch, there's stuff happening at the ground every week. You mentioned the new stand. How will the next few years look?
So yeah, off the pitch, there's still a little bit work to do, I guess, in terms of that next level ground grading. We want to provide an infrastructure. So if we're promoted this season, or if it's next season, then we've got a facility ready, and we don't have to put a lot more investment in to the facility. But we also want the facility to be quite an appealing place to come and attract more spectators from in and around the region. So if Hebburn's not their first team, then hopefully it might be their second or third team where they can come along and watch. But when they do come along, they enjoy the experience. They're in a nice standing or seating area. They're kept dry, which are paramount at this moment in time. And there's some facilities for food and drink for them to access. So there's a little bit to do, and it's in our plan to continue that development. On the pitch, again, it's around continuing that progression. As you move higher, you need to invest in some of that talent that will help compete at that level, but not forgetting our roots in terms of that, in that pathway. So we mentioned earlier, we've got six first team players that have been in and around our junior section over the years. Some of them haven't always, I guess, continued that pathway. They've went to different clubs and then come back. But it's great to see, 6 local lads from Hebburn, South Tyneside that are in that first team. And if we can grow that number, then that would be fantastic for us.
Stephen Rutherford, thanks for joining us on Inside North East Non-League Football. A fascinating journey through a really remarkable rise up the non-league pyramid and exciting times ahead for Hebburn. If you can, give us a follow on Twitter and give us a little subscribe on YouTube as well. We shall see you next time.